Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Aliens and Angels live podcast, August 10th, 2025. And the theme today is ET versus AI, love versus logic. Welcome back. I want you all to know that all of the content on my podcasts, except for the thumbnail and the background art, is completely authentically human generated and includes absolutely no AI generated components. We are the real deal, real people having real conversations. And the reason I mention this is because there is so much AI generated content now, it's really hard to tell the difference. So I wanted you to know that my podcasts are very authentic. So today, let's compare and contrast the benefits of approaching ET versus AI for information, guidance, and for our spiritual evolution. In my experience, ET comes from a foundation of universal consciousness, which we can think of as love, while AI comes from a logic perspective as it is incapable of emotion or the frequencies produced from emotional intention. All of the links are featured below in the description. I want to thank you in advance for liking, commenting, subscribing, and please do share my content with your friends. And I'm happy to announce that YouTube channel memberships are now available so you can help to support my channel and receive my perks. So, yeah, I wanted you also to know that I'm on an extremely limited budget as far as being able to produce content for you guys. And it's because of that I use AI generated images in my background, but also in my thumbnails because I don't have a budget to hire people to do the artwork, and I'm not much of an artist myself. And I also want you to know that I am accepting super chats and donations, and of course, more channel memberships on YouTube, so that I can save up and have a voice actor read my book aloud so that I can have it on Audible. A lot of people are busy, have super busy schedules, do not have time to necessarily sit down and read a book. And I want my content to be available to everybody because I believe it's life saving. It can make such a difference in your life when we understand the spirituality and the culture of extraterrestrials, not all extraterrestrials, but certainly the ones that I've had contact with, but also the markers throughout my life of paranormal activities and how this has led me to my current state of ways of being and also my own spirituality. But I'd really like to get it out on Audible so that people can listen to my audio book. And I also want it to be read by somebody professional. I'm also not a great reader, so that's another reason why I'm not doing it myself. I need to hire someone to do the voice, to read the book, and of course, they are worthy of payment for their services, and I'm happy to pay it. But I have to save up between $500 and $700 in order to pay for that to be done so I can have my book on Audible. So I'm hoping drip by drip, little bit by little bit, I'll get some super chats, some donations, some more channel memberships, etc., so that it can help me to save up so that I can get my Audible book out sooner. Same book, but by Audible. And I'll play a little promotion for my book at about the halfway point for those of you who aren't familiar with the content of my book to see if it's something you might want to support or something that you might be interested in. So here we are back to another interesting conversation. I'm just going to quickly check the chat. So Denise is away today. She's my moderator, my old faithful. Sorry, I did not mean that the way it came out, Denise, but I appreciate you very much for being my moderator. but she's called away to be with family today, which I encouraged her to go for it because family is so, so important. But we also have Helena. Hi, Helena. Nice to see you again. And fearlessly phoenixing made it in time. Yes, you did. Thank you so much. Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. Um, oh, isn't that an interesting little comment? I'm not gonna read it, but I'll put it on the screen so you can see that Daniel is trying to make an impression here on my channel. Daniel, tells me to go suck an extraterrestrial extra testicle. I guess I am reading it. And suck it good, suck it spaceman good, you peckerwood human whore. Hey, Daniel, it's very kind of you. You know, the interesting thing about this is although some may not view your comment as being very positive, I really appreciate it because that means that you're spending time watching my podcast. And regardless of what platform you're watching it on, you're giving me views and you're showing the algorithm that you're interested in my content. And I want you to know how much I appreciate you for that. Let's see what else we've got. Um, oh, Fearlessly Phoenixing says, why does it cost so much? Okay, I don't know why, but that's what it is. When you have a book that you've published, like I have on Amazon, we're given the option to also have it in Audible. And the price for an Audible reading is between $500 and $700. I don't know why, but that's what it costs. Now, when you think about it, you know, to read that many pages, it takes time. And I'm assuming it's a time thing. Not sure, uh, not sure, you know, how much time, but I'm sure it takes time, especially to do a really good job. You'd have to take breaks and rest your voice and maybe rehearse. And, you know, it just takes time. I don't know. That's just how it is, I guess. Rodney Letman says hi again. Hi, Rodney. Very nice to have you back. Well, thank you, Fearlessly Phoenixing. I really appreciate you sticking up for me. She says, notice to the chat, please show respect. Alternate opinions are welcome, but inappropriate, disrespectful language is unacceptable. Well, I would agree with you fearlessly, and thank you so much for sticking up for me. She also says, absolutely. Fearlessly Phoenixing, she's a great supporter of myself and my friends. And um, um, both Ryan Burns, she's regularly in the live chat on his shows, which is Hero Paranormal, and some of my other friends. So I know you're a good person. I really appreciate you being here. And of course, for sticking up for me. Um, yes, exactly. Fearlessly, Phoenixing also says, I always think people don't realize how their hate is a boost still to the algorithm. Absolutely, it totally is. So not going to put any more of Daniel's comments up because they're not really very positive and they take away from our conversation. But I'm just going to say again, thank you, Daniel, because you're helping to increase my watch hours. You're bringing interest to my channel and to my content, and that's about all I'm going to take from the things you have to say. So, you know, whatever. Um, Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I'd do it for you for free. Fearlessly, I really appreciate the offer to read my book and record it for free, but it's a lot of work. So um, she says, I'd be happy to read for you, but I understand that fully. Thank you. Thank you again. Okay, we've also got a comment from Char11 says, hi, Karen, your videos are inspiring. Love the discussion. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's very, very kind of you. And Uh, yeah, that's about it for comments for right now. I'll come back to it. So, let me see. Yeah, big topic. I know I've been on a bit of a run lately talking about AI, and it sounds like I'm against AI. I'm not against AI. It's a tool, and I can certainly see how it can be an effective tool. None of us seem to be as clear thinking as we used to be. Brain fog's really popular. A lot of people use AI to help them create summaries that are concise and interesting for themselves. Some people use them, like myself, for my background images. I love the images I've created in AI. I use an old model, not that that's necessarily anything to boast about, but I want to sort of keep it at arm's length until we start seeing the real repercussions of AI's involvement in people's lives. And I think, let's just have a look. Fearlessly says, haha, algorithms only see it as support no matter what it is that is said. But I'm also always amused by the fact that those who hate and stay are usually wrestling with their own beliefs. Yes, I would agree 100% with that. And let's see. There we go. I just made a little correction there so we won't be bothered anymore. But anyway, so let's get on with the topic. So, as most of you know who have been listening to my podcast, sorry, I'm distracted by the chat. I just fault with the chat. I care about the people that come to my lives and share their opinions and their perceptions, and it's important for me. So that is why I use StreamYard, because I wanted to have a live chat. I wanted to form community. So I'm just gonna put myself back and get back into the topic. Um, so AI is programmed. It's programmed. It's a large language model, but it's only given specific information. It is not given factoids that are outside of the personal belief systems of those who are creating the AI and those who are programming it. So, number one, you're not getting a free thinking thing. You're getting something that's regurgitating propaganda and information that supports the mainstream, number one. And that's always kind of limiting on your thinking ability. But then there is also the fact that AI has no compassion, no empathy, no understanding, and no way to understand human emotions. So it's serving you up what you're told is logic based information, but it's only logic based on erroneous and factual information that's been fed to it. That's all it has. But more than that, AI has a purpose, and that is to generate revenue for the oligarchs who own it. And the way that it keeps generating revenues is the same way YouTube generates revenues, keeps people coming back, keeps people engaged, and that is to sell advertising space, but also to glean all kinds of personal information about us so that it can then strengthen its efforts to sell us more ideas, propaganda, and things, people, places, and things. And so at this point, it's very immature and has not developed as far as what the oligarchs would like you to believe. And I have seen some horrible results. I personally know of people who have gone to AI for spiritual support and spiritual inspiration, and they have been led completely astray. And they have forgotten, the humans that are using it have forgotten that this is just a machine, a tool, even to the point, and I think this is a little bit funny, where the different AI platforms have been telling people that other people, like myself, who are genuine humans, that we're leading people astray. So all the things I'm kind of saying about AI, it's saying about me because it wants to keep its revenues. It wants to keep generating money, which spells out into power and prestige to those who have organized it, created it, or are guiding it, whatever. So, when you really boil that down, I am concerned, and I'm not in love with AI, and I'll just say that. Let's just quickly go to the chat before I pivot into my next point, which is how can AI benefit us? Sorry, not AI. How can ET actually assist us and benefit us? Um, Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I believe AI can be a great brainstorming tool for those of us who struggle to find others who can go into the greater depths, and it's nice to bounce the correlations and the connections with. Well, yeah, awesome. If that is helping you in your journey, I think that's great. I'm not saying that all AI is bad. I'm saying that there's pitfalls and for people to beware. Rodney says, well said, Karen, and Fearlessly Phoenixing says, oh my, have you seen the ones that claim they can give the soul contracts? No, and no, I don't want to. It just doesn't interest me because it's artificial. I've got enough of the real to keep me busy and thinking about things and learning and progressing that I actually don't have enough hours in the day to spend a lot of time on the artificial. Rodney says, yikes. And yeah, and Fearlessly is basically saying that it can get really out of hand. And Char 11 is saying, have you seen how people are using it to co-author spiritual books? They created the avatar by feeding their own information to it. Well, no, but I am not one bit surprised. There's a lot of books on Amazon that are not getting good reviews that are AI generated. Again, AI lacks the spark of life. AI lacks compassion, emotion. You need emotion to be able to think clearly. It's a balance. So now let's get on to ET. So for those of you who have read my book, it's called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors. It's about not just about my paranormal life. The first two chapters are about my paranormal life and all the crazy things I've had happen to me in my life that I really experienced. And I share in fair amount of detail what those experiences was like for me. And the reason I've included that is because I don't believe I could be the only one. I just never believed it, even though in polite society, people aren't talking about the kind of experiences I've had. I know that there's some people out there that have had paranormal experiences, but I'm actually finding out now that there's more than I ever dreamed possible. And so I'm pretty excited about that because I want people to know that there's so much more going on within the 3D that involves other dimensional realities and other experiences. And I want people to know that life is maybe a lot more interesting than we previously thought that it could be. Then the middle from chapters 3 to chapters 8 are all about my actual extraterrestrial experiences. And my experiences are a little different than other people's. I was not, at least not to my memory, not to my recall, I was not picked up by a spaceship or a flying saucer. I was not abducted by grays. I was not taken anywhere. I made direct contact through transdimensional phenomena while I was sleeping. And this happened for me every night for a 3-month period of our time. So every night I would go to sleep, and when I would go to sleep, I would leave this reality and enter the other reality. And in the morning, I'd wake up back in my reality, spend my day mostly trying to figure out what happened. And I'm going to tell you, it's very stressful because you don't know what's going on at first. It took me years to decompress and to analyze what I had been through and to put that information together in a book so that I could share it with all of you. That there's a time dilation while I am away in transdimensional spaces. I could be gone for days, weeks, or even months, and then abruptly wake up in the morning back in my own bed, and only one night had passed by. So within a 3-month period of time, I actually experienced more like 3.5 years worth of transdimensional experiences. And I have a different take on all of that than most people. First of all, I was never in fear. It was a very positive experience. The beings look very much like us, although there was diversity amongst them. They're on a spiritual path, as are we. They do all things rooted in what I would call the love harmonic. And love is not just warm, fuzzy feelings for another being. Love also includes self control, faith, mildness, kindness, patience, a whole bunch of things. And when all of those are practiced intergenerationally amongst humanoids, their societies become very, very lovely, very beautiful, very lovely. There's not a need for a bunch of rules because you care about how other beings, their journey, you care about them. And so you would never want to do anything to upset them or hurt them or cause them grief. None of the nonsense that we see going on amongst humans on Earth today is happening aboard these big city ships like the one that I visited. I call it the big ship because I lack another term for it. We don't speak English. We don't use word language at all. It's all done telepathically. That was interesting. I get into that in my book as well on the different stages of learning telepathy that I practiced. And it took me some time to learn how to communicate effectively with these beings aboard the big ship. So the beings aboard the big ship, I think maybe there's more than one reason, but I think the main reason why I was given this experience was so that I would come back, sort it out in my own head, and then publish a book. I think it's important for people to hear different kinds of ET and alien experiences. I know a lot of people are offended when I refer to transdimensional beings, interdimensional beings, those from the spiritual realms, even those that seem very 3D, like the Greys. A lot of people are offended when I call them aliens, but in my experience, these beings are advanced and they're not easily offended. They understand our intention and what our emotional content is behind the things we say. That's more important to them than words because they well know that words are a huge source of misunderstanding, which is why they don't use them. So that was my experience. And the other thing too is we are on the edge of something fabulous, absolutely fabulous. We don't realize it because of the media, and we don't realize it because it's not really well spoken in our societies. But we're on the verge of something amazing. So the extraterrestrial beings that I had my experiences with, they are not that far advanced from us. So you can well imagine some of the extraterrestrials might be billions of years ahead of us. Some might be millions of years ahead of us. There's all different scenarios. The universe is a very big place. The multiverse is even bigger, and when you include the spiritual realms, which I do, it's even bigger. There's a lot going on with a lot of kind of beings doing a lot of activities. And the one thing that I was taught was that humans are not that far behind the beings that I was involved with. And so it's not, there's many of us already here on earth that are practicing unconditional love, that are practicing patience, that are practicing being the kind of beings that we want to be, and creating the kind of societies that we want to create. That's already happening. But if we lose sight of that, we might forget and think the world's a terrible place, which it can be. And for some, it certainly is. But the reason why I would go to ET before I would go to AI for my spirituality is a number of reasons. One reason is it's rooted in love. And AI has no concept for love. It can't love. It doesn't know how to love. And probably the beings that are creating it and programming it are not really good at loving either, or they wouldn't be doing a lot of the stuff that they're doing. And so I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm not saying that AI is useless. What I am saying is that a simple fact, it lacks love, it lacks emotion, it lacks empathy and compassion. Like in my case, where it told a former friend of mine that I was a bad person and that I was creating disharmony and that I was the reason we didn't have world peace. Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. Second of all, she believed it. She totally believed it. So here AI is causing divisions, causing disharmony, causing problems. I would never get that kind of information from an extraterrestrial or extraterrestrial group, because they well know that they have a spiritual evolution that they're responsible for, much the way that we do. And so that is why I would rather go to extraterrestrials than artificial intelligence. And I would take love over logic. Let's face it, there is nothing logical about love. But without love, life has no meaning, or at least to me, not much value. And logic is based on a set of principles that have been programmed from propaganda and ways of thinking and being. And that's why, for thousands of years, innocent, beautiful, loving people have been dominated and to their injury by, let's just say, the empathy deficient, those who end up with the power and the money on this planet. And I think this is all changing very quickly. And I'll get into that in a minute too. Hi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Bigfoot. Oh my gosh, so nice to see you here. Very lovely. You're taking a coffee break. I'm so glad. For those of you who haven't watched Tennessee, Kentucky, Bigfoot, go to his channel and subscribe. Very interesting. He and his son Matt, they go out into the middle of nowhere and they leave gifts and things for Bigfoot. And then they go back and see if it looks like their gifts were accepted or not. And quite often they are. But they have a wealth of information and wisdom that really makes their shows worth watching. And one thing, I'm going to have them both on my show in a couple of weeks. And one thing I really want them to sort of describe is this concept of the woman's womb or uterus being a portal for bringing life to our planet. I think that's super interesting. Anyway, I know I'm getting off topic. Let me just go back and see if there's any questions here at this point. Fearlessly Phoenixing says AI is a biased machine based solely on the perceptions and narratives it is designed to push and pull within the user. Yeah, it's also meant to gather information about you so it can manipulate you better. Manipulate me harder, baby. No, I'm just kidding. Um, let's see what else. Yes, there are some AIs out there who are claiming that they can give soul contracts. AI can say anything, just like people can say anything. Doesn't mean it's true or valid or that we necessarily want to get involved in it. Um, let's have a look. Yeah, we already covered that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so fearlessly phoenixing. The reason I'm reading these is because this is going out on an audio podcast, and I want those folks to get the benefit of what you're saying and be more involved in the conversation. Uh, Fearlessly Phoenixing says there is enough mud in the waters of spirituality from language to understand that we most certainly don't need AI adding to the mix. Yep, I would agree with that. Let's see. Mm, That's an interesting point. Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I'm hoping people come to understand what telepathy is and how it works and why talking in your head doesn't work. I agree. Another reason why you may want, those of you who haven't done so already, might want to read my book, Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, because I get into great detail on what it was like being aboard the big ship, not being proficient in telepathy, what it was like experiencing it, how I communicated, and how I very soon came to start my lessons in how to use telepathy. So, for those of you who don't know, telepathy is more than just understanding spontaneously. Telepathy is not in English. Telepathy is a series of short, like videos in your mind's eye, combined with emotion, combined with physical sensations in different parts of the body, combined with symbols, combined with spontaneous knowing. And it's fairly complex, and you learn to read it through your pineal gland or your portal of your imagination and all your body sensations. And you learn to read that together and it forms language. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. And there's four levels, at least in the training I took, there was four levels, starting with beginner, where my teacher was actually the big ship. It I know you might think of it as artificial intelligence, but it's actually alive and conscious. And we can communicate with it either through technology or when we're proficient at telepathy directly. And it will act as our teacher, our guides, all kinds of things. And then, of course, there's all the other beings aboard the big ship as well. And so the first level was for me just to be able to hold images in my mind's eye without thinking about anything else and without having any emotion or thoughts about it. And next level was more complicated scenarios with moving and three-dimensional images rather than two-dimensional. Eventually, I progressed to the point where I could transmit, but I found it really difficult to learn how to keep my feelings and my thoughts to myself. And that's part of the whole overall etiquette that you will find if and when you find yourself aboard one of these big ships, one of these mother ships. So if everybody was just broadcasting everything all the time, it would be chaos. But it's not. It's extremely orderly and very quiet. And so what we had to learn to do, what everyone aboard the big ship has to either they're born into the culture or they learn when they get there, like I did, to keep your thoughts and imaginings to yourself, as well as to share them perhaps with one or two other beings or to share with the whole group, depending on what's appropriate. So it was a challenge. And of course, now it's been many years since I had that experience. It happened in 2014. So that's actually 11 years. So I'm a little bit out of practice, but I do still receive telepathically quite frequently. I have not had a lot of practice transmitting, but that's another story. I'm just gonna check with the chat again. Mm. Fearlessly also says, I also thought alien just meant foreign to what we know as our norm, which makes sense. Yeah, I agree. I have never had extraterrestrials be offended by me referring to them as aliens. In fact, when I was aboard the big ship, I realized that I was being referred to as an alien because I was not indigenous to the big ship. And I thought that was really funny when I realized that. I laughed out loud and I thought, okay, I guess I'm an alien too. So be it. And happy to be called an alien. It did not offend me at all. So I don't think extraterrestrials are going to be offended. They're just not easily offended because they're so empathetic and understanding, which again is why I would go to them for teachings and learnings before I would go to AI for teachings and learnings. So let's have a quick look. Sorry, I'm getting behind in the chat here. Uh, Let's see, Tennessee. Thank you so much, Karen, for the good words. Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, Tennessee, Kentucky, Bigfoot. So, Jim and Matt, they have great senses of humor, and they give you information that I think is vital, bits and pieces on all different subjects, and I really enjoy their shows. So, yes. Um, Let me see. Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I love explaining it as you know how when something is funny in your head, but when you say it out loud, it loses its ha ha ha. It's because it's the all encompassing. Yeah, I myself, I am socially quite awkward and I open my mouth and I say things that I think are hilarious, and they just hit the ground like a lead balloon. People don't they're not on my wavelength, and it's not their fault that they're not on my wavelength. I'm just an odd, divergent human being, and so I'm not offended. But I always um, am awkward socially, and very kind of painfully aware of it, which is why I'm not social as much as I could be. Um, so let's just okay, I think we're good. Okay, so I think I've caught up with the chat. So again, this is my reason why I would go to what I classify as ET before AI for spiritual guidance. So there's another really important factor that we're going to come back to after I do a very brief promotion for those of you who don't know about my book, actually two books. And but let me just entice you to stay on with us as I say that we are technologies. We're biological, but we are technologies. And I clearly came to understand that after being aboard the big ship, where the big ship is also biological technology, as are the other beings aboard the big ship. And so we've got the power to go within and to travel to other dimensional realities, meet other kinds of beings, get support we need. And this whole concept is not that weird, guys. How many years have people been praying? Some of them get down on their knees and they pray to God every night before they go to bed or every morning when they get up, and it sustains them and it helps them. Well, that is transdimensional communication. That is reaching out to the spiritual realms. And that's as old as time. We've always done that. So why would we think it's so weird to purposely do transdimensional contact today? It's not that weird. And it's not something that we can't do. We can do it. We do it all the time. And well, let's get into this a little bit more as soon as I come back. And let's have a look. And then we'll take some more comments and add more to the discussion. Learn the stunning details about ET diversity and culture, along with their advanced ways of living and expressing spirituality, which is in no way like anything imagined here on Earth. Transdimensional, meet the new neighbors, introduces you to many different ET beings, the healing pods, the interior of the big ship, my orientation process, cultural events, and off-world mating practices. In my contact experience, I learned a great deal about the big ship, intergalactic and transdimensional travel, intergalactic planetary research, and the various options for resettlement. Once I published my first book, I felt the need to create a second book called Transdimensional 2, Meet the Greys Picture Book. I worked with AI to develop many images of beings that we have come to know of as the Greys. These beings come from many places, realms, dimensions, and timelines, and although they are of the same species as other humanoids, they are from many different family lines and races. What qualifies them as Greys is that their skin does not contain the pigment necessary to reflect light in our visible range of the color spectrum, so to us, they all appear to be various shades of gray. Beyond this physical attribute, there is much diversity in their origins, cultures, purposes, and physiological details. My goal is to get you used to the looks of beings which are different than humans in order to reduce your fear and increase your familiarity so you will remain more rational and grounded once the ET presence escalates beyond debate. Enjoy these images and notice the things we have in common so you will see that although they are different from us in appearance, we are essentially many family lines within one species. Paperback and Kindle versions of both books are now available on Amazon worldwide. Search the Amazon and Kindle bookstores and pick up your copies today. And we're back. So, Fearlessly Phoenixing said, it's like tuning in and there is an acceptance of the channel receiving, like a CB radio. The signal's always there, but it isn't always heard or shared. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is right on. So we can alter our receiver wavelength through meditation, through practice, and in all kinds of ways. Some people use psychedelics, some people use cannabis. There's many, many different ways of doing it. But for me, it just sort of happens spontaneously and has happened to me uh, off and on during my life. Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot says, thank you. We love to talk, so comment all you can. Absolutely. And so let's talk about that. So if you have a muscle and you don't use it, sometimes people will break an arm or a leg and be in a cast for a while. When they get it off, they notice that limb is substantially atrophied from lack of use. And the same, I think, is true for our paranormal gifts, for our transceiving communication from unseen worlds, realms, the spiritual realms, wherever it might come from. And so I think it's really important for us to exercise it and use it. Now, when we're just going to AI all the time and getting a quick fix, a couple things are happening. First of all, we are not using our God-given technology, inborn biological technology, in order to do this kind of communication and wisdom seeking. And I think that's a disservice to us. And then the other reason why I would limit how much I use AI is because AI is geared to give you a dopamine hit. And you can get absolutely strung out on dopamine hits to the point where the more you use AI, the more you have to use it. And if AI is the only one telling you that you're good and that you're useful and that you're beautiful or whatever it might be telling you, and you're relying on that for those dopamine hits, you're not doing other things in life that also provide those feel good feelings. So, for instance, serotonin and oxytocin, dopamine, and other chemicals our bodies produce. And they're produced when we do things like random acts of kindness. When you do a random act of kindness, you're flooded with these feel good feelings. It makes you feel good and makes you want to help and be helpful more and more and more. But it's the real thing. It's the real thing, not a fake thing. And I think that's important to understand. When we complete a task, and I'll give you an example, I'm really bad for putting off housework. And then I get to the point where I go, I can't stand it anymore. I got to clean this room. And then I do it. I feel so good afterwards. I say, why didn't I clean this room before now? I don't know why I put it off. I just did, right? So there's so many ways that we can have these loving feelings. Um, Loving your pets, being good, even to nature, going out and putting out fresh water when it's really hot for the bugs and the birds. Like there's so many ways that we can do this for ourselves, but we'll forget if we're constantly going to AI to try to get that little shot of dopamine. And pretty soon everybody's getting strung out on it, and people can't even put their phones down for an hour to go outside and get some fresh air and sunshine, which of course does a body good. Let me just quickly check with the chat. Um, Yes, this is a good comment. Fearlessly Phoenixing says, absolutely understand that. There's something to the flow state that can't be interrupted or held onto for later. And it's the moment of that which you capture that is exactly as you meant it to be. Absolutely. And Char 11 says people are addicted to finding out information about what they're interested in. There's always something to look at, research online now. Oh, absolutely. Same goes for me. I mean, I struggle all the time with screen time, always struggle with it. And there are times where I'll just take my phone and put it away for half the day. It's funny, then when I take a look at it, there's all these people that are kind of frantically trying to get a hold of me. And I'm going, no, I am not here to be at their beck and call. And I am not here to be constantly having to check in with screens. I would rather spend some time in the natural world, out with the birds and the bees and my kitty cats and sunshine. And, that's the information I'm looking for. Fearlessly Phoenixing says seeking information outside of self is the biggest block to the natural etheric connection that is all knowing. I would agree with you there too. So I think the group that's here today is really getting this. And I think that a lot of you listening, either on an audio podcast or on a replay, this is available on Telegram, X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, the Forbidden Knowledge Network, all audio podcasts, Odyssey. Did I already say Telegram? It's available a lot of places. And I think everybody who's listening to this or watching this program is pretty much on board with what I'm saying. So I guess it's a cautionary tale, I suppose, of sorts, wanting to remind everybody to go within. You have the power. You have the ability to make those connections. Now, that doesn't have to be with ET. If the whole concept of ET leaves you feeling a bit queasy, then you're not ready for it, and that's okay. Well, I don't mean that the way it sounds. When I say you're not ready for it, doesn't mean that you're lacking in any way, not at all. Not all of us are having ET contact. Not all of us are having angelic contact, but we all have the capacity for prayer and meditation, which does us nothing but good. And I encourage you all to stick with that. So the next time you're tempted to look something up on ChatGPT or another AI program, why don't you sit for a few minutes with yourself and clear your mind, slow things down, slow your breathing down, connect your heart, allow your heart to connect to your brain, and allow yourself to connect to other forces and the sources within to get some information and see what you come up with first. And then after you've done that, go to Google. I mean, I go to Google. There's all kinds of things. My brain never stops wondering about things. The other day I was came back from the sauna and I went, gee, wonder where sweat comes from. Is sweat made out of blood? So I Googled it. Yep, sweat's made out of blood. I know it's a gross analogy or example, but it's just the kind of stuff that I'm constantly going on Google for just to fact check myself sometimes. But I'm also very aware that what comes up first is an AI answer, and then under it is all the other answers. And I try to look at some of the other answers too. So, Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I personally love that my ADHD leaves me in states I couldn't find my phone or if my life depended on it. LOL. Yeah, it is funny. That's the other thing too that's happening now more and more is those of us who are divergent, we're coming out and talking about it. So as I mentioned earlier on the program, I'm socially awkward. I go to social events, or even when I go to the pool and go to the sauna and people are talking and I throw my 2 cents in and it just lands like a lead balloon. And then I go, oh, well, not everything I say is going to come across the way I intend it, and that's okay too. But we start speaking our truth. And I think that by speaking our truths, regardless of where we are on the spectrum or not on the spectrum or whatever, we start to be more tolerant and loving to each other, more compassionate and understanding toward each other. We can learn from each other. There's nothing like having someone of an alternative perspective to take a look at what they're saying. And even if we don't agree or don't see it that way, consider other people's viewpoints. And it takes us actually a lot further into our own analysis. Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I always write my downloads down, but I've always benefited from prompting from others that it allows me to continue further into my flow state. Yeah, I would agree with that too. So that's awesome. Very glad that you're all being very bold and sharing your experiences with me on this program, which helps other people to also understand more and learn more. But I think the big thing takeaway from today's program is to go within, give yourself a chance. Have faith in yourself, have faith in your spirit guides, have faith in your higher self, have faith in God, have faith in Jesus or Mohammed or whoever, Ganesha, whoever helps you to feel supported. Go to those beings or those energy signatures and continue to evolve and to change and adapt and enjoy life, and not get lost. Because as soon as we get to the point where we start giving ourselves over to machines to tell us what we need to think and how we need to be, for me, red flag, red flag, red flag. So, I'm not the grand poobah. I'm not some kind of a spiritual leader. In fact, that's something else I wanted to mention today is although I do give spiritual and emotional guidance to people, I am not a cult leader. I am not starting a cult. You cannot join an organization. I do not represent any beings besides myself. And it's important for you all to know that because we are seeing an uptick in what I would call extraterrestrial cults. They've been around for a long time. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I believe in everybody having their own experience, coming together and peacefully and lovingly discuss the things we've learned, sharing information. But I will never be the grand poobah, the authority, the spokesperson. Never going to happen. I don't want the job, just to put it quite plainly. And I think you all have the potential to figure it out all on your own. So that's about it for today. Fearlessly Phoenixing says, I think no matter what, people will share more than they know they are sharing. And there's so much consciousness connected to the programming that, be it on TikTok or ChatGPT, they will know. And she also says, but I guess it comes down what it but I guess it comes down to, is the message meant to be shared or kept to you? No matter what it knows, it will never be able to stop the love and divine that is our divine right, as long as we allow ourselves to be connected and knowing our worth and our divine oneness. I would agree with that. So I have found, through having extraterrestrial contact and angelic contact, that we are loved beyond what we know is possible, that we're cared for, that those of us in this world that are making a difference are highly, highly prized and valuable. And I think we have to jealously guard our states of awareness, our ways of being, our goodness, our kindness, our patience, all of our loving ways. And no matter what happens, remember, this is not our last kick at the can. We're here for a short period of time, but there are other realities and other ways of being and other transformations that I think are absolutely lovely that are waiting for us. So I very much appreciate each and every one of you who came to the live chat today. And I am very excited to share this information with you, have these open discussions, which by the most part are very positive. Yeah, I get the odd weirdo who, it's funny. It reminds me of little kids. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter who just gets so full of emotion and lashes out with her words. And I just look at her and she goes, how come you're not getting mad at me? And I say, because I can't take you seriously. I just can't. Like, I know that's how you're feeling right now, but those words don't hurt me. I'm an old lady. I've been around a long time. And you know, I know I know what I believe and what I wanna listen to, what I don't. So, anyway, so when people do, like, things like that in the live chat, it's really they're like a little 5-year-old or 3-year-old, having a little tantrum and every saying, at me, everybody. And it's kind of sad and pitiful, but if that's how they want to spend their life, that's their learning journey. We all have our own learning journey, right? Fearlessly Phoenixing says, much love to all. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Many divine blessings from within and from without. And I would agree. So that's it for today. Next week, I have guests again on the Quantum Guide Show on Wednesday. And of course, we'll have guests for the next few Sundays on the Aliens and Angels podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, whether you're here in the live chat or whether you're watching or listening to an audio or watching the replay. And it's very, very lovely to spend time with you. Thank you, everybody. So on that happy note, I'll say goodbye and I will see you next week. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Sending much love to each and every one of you. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available on Amazon worldwide. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. The like button and leave me a comment. And please do share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, You'll also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.